A brief treatise on the vanity of a lady and the gold of a dog. About 500 years ago, in the Castilian region of Old Castile, near Valladolid, lived the protagonist of this story. A lady known among her neighbors as the sanctimonious one with the upturned nose. She never looked at anyone without lifting her chin, except when criticizing the state of her shoes. Her full name was as pompous as her ego. Doña Constanza de Albornoz y Valderrama, a living example of appearances taken to the extreme. Her wardrobe was the envy of the village. Long dresses with embroidery, gleaming patent leather shoes, powdered wigs, and lace fans that she wielded like sabers of distinction. But her jewelry box, that was another story. It held only two treasures: a gold ring, reminder of her marriage vows, and a silver necklace she wore with stubborn pride at every village celebration, although it often tarnished due to the copious perfumes she applied. To her, it was a symbol of nobility.
"Fine silver,"
she would proclaim, pointing to her neck with gloved fingers, convinced that this rare accessory in Old Castile was a sure sign of distinction. The truth was far humbler. The necklace barely reached 18 carats. Its links were thin, and constant use gave it a dull gray hue. But in an era when silver was rarer than a farmer resting during barley harvest, such an adornment was enough to stir envy. With her haughty walk, flowery outfits, and constant hunger for approval, Doña Constanza was a permanent target of gossip and whispers. But that, of course, mattered to her as much as anyone else's shoes. Not at all. As long as she wore her silver necklace, she felt more illustrious than the king himself. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in lands Europeans had only just begun to call the New World, though they had been inhabited for millennia, lived Yuma, a dog descended from the sacred Xoloitzcuintli, considered by some indigenous peoples as the guide of souls to the underworld. Yuma knew no masters and obeyed none. He was treated like an earthly deity. He roamed freely, slept where he pleased, and ate whatever he found. Around his neck shone a chain of solid gold, from which hung a pendant the size of a hen's egg, also pure gold. The brilliance of his ornament contrasted with his natural calm and astonished those who shared his land. In those distant lands, the golden metal, so coveted in Europe, was as abundant as the stones in the rivers. During the dry season, when the riverbeds receded, birds and monkeys fluttered not after fish or fruit, but at the golden gleam that emerged from the riverbed. The shores glistened with gold under the sun, and the locals, more concerned with the harvest, the hunt, or ritual dances, barely paid attention to the metal beneath their feet. While Yuma splashed in the mud to cool off, his golden chain jingling with every leap, Doña Constanza paraded among the nobles of Castile with her tarnished silver necklace, repeatedly saying,
"Behold this refinement,"
proud, convinced that this jewel made her unique. But then came the rumors. A ship docked in the port of Santander, full of fantastic tales and exaggerations from the far side of the ocean. Sailors spoke of lush land, half-naked peoples, incomprehensible languages, and, above all, mountains where gold sprouted like weeds in Castilian fields. There was so much precious metal that even the dogs, yes, the dogs, wore jewels like kings. Upon hearing such stories, Doña Constanza clutched her necklace nervously. She shook her head and muttered,
Drunkards and liars. A dog with gold jewelry? Impossible. I must see it with my own eyes.
Fate conspired in her favor. Her husband was appointed an official in those new, distant, and promising lands, and she, determined to prove that no dog could outshine her in elegance, boarded the ship without hesitation. Few women dared such a journey, but Constanza sought more than status. She needed to ensure that her necklace remained a symbol of nobility, even across the ocean. The voyage lasted 2 long months, made bearable by a cheerful band of musicians that played aboard the royal caravels. Upon arrival, she dressed in her finest attire, powdered her nose, and ceremoniously fastened her silver necklace, imagining throngs cheering her arrival. The reality was less poetic. The ship ran aground on a rocky shore. They had to disembark waist-deep in water, her dress soaked and makeup smeared. No one was there to greet them. A welcome, quite different from what she had envisioned. In the days that followed, her presence went almost unnoticed among the locals. Neither her fair skin nor her flashy clothes were enough to stand out among a people immersed in harvesting, music and bathing in golden rivers. But Constanza had not forgotten her mission: to find the dog from those whispered stories told in taverns, through smoke, drink, and exaggeration. For weeks she snooped discreetly to no avail, beginning to believe it was all a fantasy. Until it happened. One hot afternoon, while cursing the foolishness of such a pointless journey, she saw a silhouette emerge from the trees. It was a medium-sized, calm dog, chewing on a bone from the previous night's feast. Hanging from his neck gleamed the legendary gold chain and pendant. It was Yuma. Doña Constanza stared, mouth agape, unable to contain herself. She approached him with a haughty tone.
What nonsense! A dog with such fine jewelry. Only nobles like me deserve such luxury.
Yuma looked at her indifferently and went back to gnawing his bone. Indignant, she picked up a stick and moved toward him, determined to take his jewels. Yuma didn't resist. On the contrary, he seemed relieved when the weight was lifted from his neck. The only thing he regretted was having his snack interrupted. As a gesture of gratitude, he licked the lady's shoes, then trotted away, into the jungle, free and joyful. That very night, Doña Constanza held a private ceremony. She delicately put on the gold chain, hiding the pendant beneath her dress so as not to attract attention. Her old silver necklace was banished to the bottom of the chest, alongside her wedding ring. The journey had been worth it. She already imagined herself returning to Valladolid, glorious, admired, worshipped like a goddess for wearing gold that, though she'd never admit it, had once belonged to a dog. Months passed. The sanctimonious lady with the upturned nose, now the Duchess Doña Constanza de Albornoz y Valderrama, once again strutted through the town with her head held higher than ever. Her new golden necklace sparkled in the sun, and everyone stared with awe and envy. Meanwhile, somewhere in the new world, Yuma wandered happily, freer than ever, grateful to have been relieved at last of the golden burden he had carried since he was a pup.